On Boxing Day of 2017, me and 3 friends decided to retry ARK Survival Evolved. We'd played around 10 months prior, but constantly being under attack killed our enjoyment of the game, and as such we stopped playing very quickly. The farthest we had achieved was a small stone base, no electricity or dinos other than parasaurs, dilos, dodos, and a low level pteranodon. With this new attempt, we built up for a couple of days and managed to make a fairly large stone base. It quickly got raided and most of my friends stopped playing, only to come on for an hour every so often. I continued in a cycle of being raided and solo rebuilding a stone base. Eventually, I made friends with some fellow beach bobs and we started to play together. They remained in their tribe and I stayed in mine, but we did ally and help each other out. They lived on a cliff right above what at this point was essentially my solo base, as everybody else had gotten bored, which was quickly becoming my own fate as well. I logged back on one day as per usual, however my base had been raided. This was fairly commonplace and would occur roughly every 2 or 3 days, however this time was different. As I was returning to the ruins of my raided base, I saw it still under invasion. These raiders had raided my main base, but were still breaking into my dino pen that had 1 pteranodon and 1 Phiomia in it. The culprits? My allies. I managed to distract them long enough to get into the dino pen and fly away with my pteranodon. I escaped and we argued in global chat for around half an hour. During this, they made their getaway and also escaped, so that I couldn't kill them with my pteranodon. In the heat of this prolonged argument, there was somebody in chat who was practically begging to join somebody's tribe at this point. Obviously, nobody took them up on this offer, as they were probably an insider. However, after he took note of our argument, he asked for one of us to let him in, so that he could kill the opposition. I had already lost everything but my pteranodon, so I reluctantly obliged, seeing as it couldn't get any worse, right? Well, that would actually be correct. As it happens, this stranger joined me and pulled the Tapejara out of upload. Whilst we couldn't find the traitors, I did make a new tribe mate, who seemed to be fairly progressed in the game. It was late that night, so I logged off and let him know that I'd be on tomorrow. The following day, he joined my party and we started to work on a new base. He flew me to the redwood on the island map and set out a small metal base with some turrets that he had. I never once questioned where he got all of this stuff from, so I just went along with it and was ecstatic over having a metal base with turrets. I did my best to help and grind by setting up behemoth gates everywhere and getting more protection for the base. Everything was going well and one of my friends who wasn't with me before even wanted to start playing. He joined the server that we were on and decided to play solo. He tamed a dodo, kept it in his base and he got his base broken into, with the raiders killing him and his beloved pet dodo, Bebo. Nothing was stolen because we didn't want to be mean. Yeah, it was us. It was hilarious to knock him out, wait for him to wake up and then shoot his dodo in front of him. We even watched him bury Bebo in the ocean until he got hungry and harvested his body for food. A day or 2 later, he did actually get raided, so he joined us to make it a tribe of 3. We had a lot of fun playing together all day every day and got up to a lot of antics. We made friends with the beach bobs of the server, the big dogs of the server, and frogs. Lots of frogs. Oh, that bobstone base you saw? That was Unholy Hitman's. His base got raided by some griefers and so we let him join us. These 4 members would make up the tribe for almost the entire time. Myself, Unholy Hitman, my friend Taylor, and BlazeGator. BlazeGator brought over eggs for us to hatch so that we could have our very own dinos. I eventually learned that he was from a very large tribe, Space Cowboys. I didn't know any tribes at the time, but he informed me that they were the biggest, and in a category of tribes known as Mega Tribes. They are alpha tribes that span dozens of servers. They are constantly at war, which is where the large wars you see on YouTube take place. He was fairly bored there and wanted to try out something new, which is why he joined us and brought so much over to our server. Our tribe was called the Revengers, and was allied with the other tribes on the server because they were fearful of being raided by SC should Blaze call for it. These were YYWC, Turok, and Royals. Turok had raided my base when I was a noob, Unholy's base when he was a noob, and even Taylor's starter base. They weren't friendly with the beach bobs and thus we always had a plan to raid them at some point, but it just never ended up happening. We were much better friends with YYWC, as they even let us participate in a boss fight with them. Anyways, server lesson over. Our base in the Redwood had been attacked by a couple of griefers and we were also beginning to outgrow it. Thus, we packed everything up and moved to the snow. This was located directly opposite the giant iceberg, and we set up behemoth gates all around the perimeter with 2 metal buildings for all of our resources, crafting and everything else we had. Turrets were set up on our ceiling, and a couple small turret towers were also planted around. We kept on growing from there, raising more and more, taming more and more, and improving more and more. I even stumbled upon some beach bobs who resembled our tribe name, obviously trying to make it seem as though they were us and shouldn't be raided. We were widely known on the server as a part of Terra Nova, the alliance that the big tribes on this server were a part of. Unfortunately, that seemed to be our height. Taylor went a little AWOL and was pretty upset with the tribe, so he had to be removed. This left us with only 3 members remaining. Wanting to fill this gap, we continued to make friends with the beach bobs as I always intended to do. I never wanted to grief or raid those not near my level, as I understood how unfair it was to build up, as I had attempted it myself. We allied with Steckman, who was a friendly beach bob that we wanted to have join us. He chose to stay in his own tribe for the time being, although this was only the beginning of the end. Our base had been unfound for almost a month, which is very lucky, as I only realised after the fact that our base was very easy to raid due to a significant lack of turrets. I woke up one day and checked my PlayStation messages, only to see Blazegator inform the trio that we had been wiped. I logged on to ensure that it was true, and sure enough, it was. Everything was stolen and killed, except for one vulture. This was the only dino to survive the attack. I made a lot of memories with the Revengers, and more importantly, I had actually made some good friends. This would become the sad and sudden demise of the Revengers, and my time on ARK. Or so I thought. You see, Blaze had asked his tribe leader if we would be allowed to join him, and we were surprisingly enough allowed to join SC. There was a few days waiting period in which time Steckman would be raided and thus join us at SC, and we would be reunited with Connor. We tribed Connor up a couple days before we got raided, so we didn't have much time with him. This meant that myself, Unholy, Steckman and Connor would all be with Blaze and join SC, the biggest tribe on ARK PS4. I had done it. I was at the top. Not only this, but we were a part of the Reborn tribe in SC, which was one of the biggest tribes in the Mega Tribe. I got given a tour of the place and it was surreal, but also laggy. Very laggy. We were shown to an area beneath the desert plateau, which was where the main base resided, with no turrets or dinos. It was a large area with 2 buildings, one for crafting, hatching and rooms, and then one for raising dinos. This separation was partly due to trust and partly due to a lack of rooms at the main base at the time. Blaze was still at the main area, but he quickly fell back into boredom with being so above everybody else in the start of the game. Very early on, he stopped playing. Without Blaze, me, Unholy, Steck and Connor were without direction and left to our own devices, with the most amount of toys that you could imagine. We had complete freedom to do as we pleased. So, we raised dinos. A lot of them. Over the course of a few months, we had made turret towers and filled our area with overpowered dinos. This ultimately led us into a position in which we were now comfortable with what we had. That same boredom that hit Blaze had struck all of us also. I tried Aberration when it released to experience something new, but it just wasn't fun. Unholy was a father of 2 and married, so the amount of time that he spent on ARK was not sustainable. He no longer had the time to pursue this second-time job, and as such, he sadly quit. I was the only member left from the core group of the Revengers. Not long after Unholy quit, so did Steck. This left me and Connor to carry on the legacy. Only 2 members seemed like too little for the separated area we had established from the beginning, and now that we had developed trust with the rest of the tribe, at least somewhat, I destroyed our area and took all of the resources to improve the main base. I say I because somewhere along the line here, Connor stopped playing also. I was the only one left. I raised some more dinos for myself and then took a break to take my GCSE exams. Upon returning, I had discovered that Space Cowboys had gone to war with another mega tribe on our server. I took one of my gigas, went to the fight, was killed, and logged off. Little did I know, that was the last time that I would be in that tribe. This wasn't because we got raided, I got kicked, or anything like that. I just suddenly got bored. I played other games with my friends that I originally started this journey with, and it was something that I hadn't done since Blaze came in. Being a part of SC was great, but I more fondly remember playing on 108 with Blaze, Taylor and Unholy. I just grinded with SC, and whilst it was cool to have so much stuff to play with, I never actually did much with it. I had a lot less on the server 108, but had a lot more fun. You play the game to make your worry the next morning on whether or not you've been raided less, but when that becomes 0, it takes out the reason to play. I don't actually know what happened with our ally war. It was on server 403, but I haven't seen anything of what occurred from it. I've spoken to Unholy once since I quit. Blaze I speak to every couple months, and I'm still good friends with Taylor. These are people that I will never forget, because of the month-long journey we shared. I've already forgotten most of those people in SC, despite being there for 5 times as long. Ultimately, the goal of PvP ARK is to become invincible. However, when you are invincible, there's nothing to do. I understand why these players and tribes like this would grief the beach bobs, because it's so boring otherwise and it's just something to do. I never did raid a beach bob as I stuck to my word. I did what I wanted to do and made some great memories along the way. I'm not sure if SC is still the biggest tribe or even if it still exists, but I did join the biggest tribe and I'm thankful to Blaze for accidentally giving me the opportunity to do so. If you watched this video in order to try and find out how to join a mega tribe, here's my one recommendation. Don't. Play with friends, no matter how insignificant you are on the ARK scene, because it is still more fun than being a small cog in the world's largest clock.